we've all heard these words circulating more now than ever. They've always been there. They're always going to be there. And I'm going to explain in this video why they're important and why you should keep them, especially if you're an investor or you have investments, or if you're someone that's into this, sector, this as an economist, why you should pay attention to them, study them. Why are they basically rules by handbook to go by. If you like the video, if you like the content in this channel, it is free, so go ahead and hit a like and subscribe. But let's get into the definitions, and like I said, why they're important, why we're never going to stop hearing about them, and it's not a bad thing. We need to know this stuff. We need to know, this is measurements. This is how we track the economy. This is how we can plan our next move. This is how we realign our portfolio. So first couple of words you're going to hear a lot. I've got notes here, and we've got jobs report. You hear that? You hear unemployment, wage growth, job growth, wage earnings. Let's go CPI, inflation, rate hikes, recession. Well, all those, it gets a little bit redundant after a while, but it's because they're so important, and most of the time you don't want to ignore the signs on future data to help, like I said, realign your portfolio. So I've done a little research here for you and why they're so important. This all goes back to supply and demand. Everything you do, the world, how it works, the economy, everything works in hand. It's a circle together. But let's just in general, if you look at just a jobs report, that is something that's going to, it estimates the number of payrolls in the economy and the average number of hours worked weekly and their earnings, along with how much time they're working as well. So that's just jobs report. Let's go into consumer price index. Consumer price index is a measure of the average change over time in the prices paid by consumers. Okay, let's go into recession definition. A recession definition, which currently what we've had is 2 declines of GDP, which is the growth dollar. We've already had those. But anyways, let's go to rate hikes. Rate hikes is more about borrowing, lending out money. You're going to increase that interest rate, so it's going to cost you more to do that. But in general, it makes borrowing more expensive. Let's go back to that GDP, which is the total monetary or market value of the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders. Okay. Now, all in all together, you're going to hear these a lot. You're going to keep hearing about them, like I said. And where it goes back to why you're hearing the Fed talk about it a lot lately. And every so couple of years, there's usually a reset to, when money's pumped into the economy like this, you have to get back the interest rates and the supply and demand, and how much people pay for it, and the unemployment. It all has to balance back out. And that's the problem with where people keep throwing the recession word into, is because if you can't get those to fall at the same time, and you can't get them to, at a soft landing, regulate at the same time, that's where you can see a recession. It's just true. And some economists say we're already in a recession. And a lot of people are saying no, because look at the wage growth. People are still hiring. Jobs are up. That's also why, if we were, remember this guy from the last meeting, he was quite hawkish, and there's a reason why. That jobs report came in and it was still strong. So, these prices are going to keep going up, which is the inflation part of this. And in general, if your unemployment is not going down, prices are going up, the wages are going up, it means people are going to keep paying these prices. So the only way to, realign this supply and demand part is if, let's say, which we could go to scenarios, this sometimes helps people in a way understand things better. If you're a beginner at this, or if you're just getting into, these terms, or you're hearing them more, and like mostly a beginner investor. If you have, we could relate to the economy this past, what we just went through 2020 to 2022 with the pandemic happening. It's why a lot of this is going on. All this money got pumped into the economy. And let's just go to a certain product like a Tesla. Those were averaging costs anywhere near like 25, and I know it's hard to believe since we've seen such prices, but it was $25,000 to $35,000 for these models, even below that. Well, when you think about how much wages have increased, and the strong market, if those prices wouldn't have stayed that way, if they've stayed $25,000 to $35,000, we'd all own 3 of them, honestly, or everyone could own one, and you'd be out of supplies. That's where that supply and demand goes back in hand. And the way you slow demand down, which I know sounds crazy, why would you want to slow demand down? Well, you're going to run out of your supplies. When you cut all those workers out, which is what happened really quick, that's why you saw a big dip in 2020. Nobody was working. That looks like a strong unemployment number, even though it was a forced one. Those prices were set, and all these people were out of jobs. Whether or not they were home, there was still a lot of uncertainty. So we can go back to the scenario or prices. If you keep those people out of work, and the only way to get them back is to pay them more money, well, when you pay a lot more money in wages, that has to be balanced out somewhere. So now the price of your product has to go up to be able to pay the price that you're paying the wages now for your employees to come back. Okay, so now those two in hand are doing this. We're paying more to get the workers back, to actually get this product out so we can give this a supply to the demand. And as those prices increase, the wages are increasing. Well, okay, product has to, it costs more to ship this stuff or to make these things because everyone else is doing the same thing. Factories, anybody who's making a product has now just had to pay their people more money to come back to work, or just in general. Back in recent history, there was just, the minimum wage once you raised, same thing that happens again, where if raises go or wage goes up, you have to increase your product. And the only way to balance that out really without, going negative, because you want that consistent, money coming in. You want the earnings, you want the capital, you want all this revenue to come in consistently or to grow. Nobody ever wants their company to take a dip unless they're using, capital money to do new adventures, etc. That happens just like Disney just went into debt double time. But that's a whole other story. Point is right now where we're at with, you're going to hear these terms a lot. You're going to keep hearing them. And the way to get that soft landing is because what they want is, since people are paying such a high price for all these items, and this goes back to all these CPI inflation, that's how we sit there and watch what people are paying for, and they're still paying, to me, an astronomical price for a lot of these items, but it's because they have it. They do. And when you see a not so strong jobs report and you see that unemployment starts going down, you'll see companies start shaving off and doing layoffs. Well, when layoffs start happening, people start losing money. This is where the rate hikes come in, and they want to increase more money because, okay, when you have a job and you're making lots of money, who cares if you open up a credit card and can put $3,000 on it because you have confidence that you're going to pay it off within 6 months or before the interest rates increase, whatever. When unemployment goes higher and you hear about layoffs, that confidence starts to go away. And when you're thinking, I don't want to borrow as much anymore because now I'm borrowing $3,000 to pay something off and it's going to cost me an extra $400 just to do it, I don't have that much confidence in myself that I'm going to want to pay that extra money or in that time frame to get it done. So the rate hikes, deters people from borrowing so much money, which is the first halt, and he's going to keep doing that until he sees that this unemployment, which I know sounds crazy, but you do want unemployment. You want this to go down in a way, so it's that confidence. The companies need to regulate themselves from how much they're raising prices, and the only way to do that is to reverse what you just did. you shave off, even wages or how much you're paying your people, so you can lower your price, or if you can find a cheaper way to do it, which is that does happen. There's technology and innovations, so that does happen as well. That's why this all ends up balancing out. But in the future, you're going to keep hearing about these things. It's a constant cycle, and it's hard to always stay right there. But there's a comfortable level of that 2%, and that can go in around. And even Jay Powell is projecting not until 2024 to really be closer to that 2%. So you're going to see a lot of this, which is why a lot of people are playing the recession. If you can't get the unemployment and the interest rates, the inflation to fall at the same time at a nice level, then that's where these terms, these definitions are very important, and where you need to stay focused on them, because it does affect your portfolio. It affects where you invest your money and how long of a return you're looking at to have. So just in general, go back to this torch scenario to make it, not simplified, but yes, like if you owned your own business, say a lemonade stand, let's go to that typical thing, and say you had 5 employees, you sell lemonade for 50 cents. Okay, great. Say you're forced to lay off all those people, and then all this money comes in from no one working, it's just free in a way, but nothing's free. And all of your lemonade starts selling like crazy. Well, you have half the workforce or no workforce, and your demand is high, and you have no one to get it. How do you get those workers back when they just got a bunch of money? You're going to have to increase their wage to get them to come back. Well, now that you've increased their wage, you have to increase the price of your product. This just keeps going. There's a certain point, though, which is why we watch these inflation numbers and the CPI, is because there becomes a certain point where they go, oh, I can see it peaking. I can see where, you used to sell limited for 50 cents and now you're selling it for $12. People are starting to finally cap off and go, oh no, I'm not gonna, that's not worth it. There hits a certain level of what a person, consumer will do and what they'll pay for, and that's what they watch. And once there comes a certain point where it's like, I can't pay you any more money. It's going to mess with the P&L and margins. I'm gonna have to stop here, and you might see unemployment go back, and it'll start rising. Once that employment starts rising, and you're now not paying people as much, or you're cutting payments in general, you can't really duck their money and go backwards, but you can cut people who don't really need the jobs, or aren't as necessary, which there's certain positions. Go into that later. But in general, once you can do that, you can start finally lowering your prices, because it averages out your margins in your P&L. And then once you get down, you'll start seeing that inflation rate will bounce back out, and you will see a new high, but a new comfortable level that what people are willing to pay for. And then you can reinforce the people back in employment and get it back in line and be like, okay, people are comfortable paying this price. Here it is. I've seen a boost back in, consumer index and price, and we can now hire people back, but we might hire them back at wages somewhat where they before, or in general, the new people that are hired will maybe not make as much as then the ones that got hired at a certain time. Who knows? That's a whole different book. But in short story, if this clears this up at all, like I said, it's all about supply and demand. It's all about how you balance it out to also keep your company safe, to be able to produce that demand that's of the supply that you're giving. You need to be able to give it, and you have to have workers to do that. And in general, yeah, huge story, huge circle, but that's basically what it is around. So you're going to keep hearing these terms. I could go on and on for hours with this, but it's literally how everything works. And it's really important to take all these terms, definitions, memorize them, especially, like I said, if you're a beginner or investor, or you're not, you're just, long-term, who cares? You're going to hear them pop up here and there. And when you start hearing them in the news, that's when you should have some indicators to maybe look at your portfolio, or look at your long-term and short-term, of what you're doing. Maybe the stuff that you should dive into, like consumer staples, things that people always need. This is another video that's coming, is how to redo your portfolio in times like are heading up. But go ahead and hit the like, subscribe button, and leave a comment down below about what you think. In general, how long this could last. What's going to happen. What do you think Jay Powell's going to do? Your opinions about supply and demand, and how the companies and CEOs have made their moves. I'm interested.